Yeah, so this podcast is about you guys and your journey in music and forming O Future and how you guys got to where you are now.
Great.
Cool. So you're both from different parts of the world, correct? One from South Africa and Denmark?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me about that. Yeah.
I know. No, will you start since you come from the
Okay,
World Cup?
so I'm from Denmark.
Okay.
I don't know, do you know what Denmark is, where it is? Should I tell about it, what it is?
Tell about where it is. I know
Yes.
where it is vaguely, but everyone else
Yeah,
might
so
not know.
it's a very tiny country, actually. It's 5 million people in the northern part of Europe. It's basically a part of Scandinavia, obviously, like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Iceland. But we're kind of like the closest to Europe because we're connected with Germany. We're like the top head of Europe, right? You know, like the
the top piece there.
And so yeah, I grew up there and eventually found my way here. So that's a very short story. That's a long version. No,
Right.
yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, and I grew up in a family where where there was music playing, classical music. I played violin.
Oh, very cool.
My
That's the
mother-
first instrument you learned?
Yeah, that was my first instrument. And my mother was obsessed with having me and my brother playing the violin. And he eventually became violinist. And I kind of stopped and hated practicing and got into all sorts of arguments. It was a horrible childhood in the sense of that I had to practice every day and I hated every minute of it. So there was a lot of screaming going on in the house. But eventually I survived. And later when I was like 12, I realized I also had a sister. She's dead now, but that's all right. But she had a boyfriend at the time. She was a lot older than me. So she had a boyfriend who was a sax player. And once I met that guy
in the south of France.
he was also,
you need to tell about that.
He was from France. He's
okay.
a Frenchman, and he was also the French windsurfing champ somehow.
Wow, that's cool.
So he was like
a sax player and a windsurfer.
Yeah, it's like
that's hard to beat.
Yeah.
Sure.
Especially when you're 12.
Did he teach you sax?
No, well, he helped me buy one. I met him on a holiday in France at the time back then, and once I went there and spent two weeks in France, and kind of I realized I wanted to be a sax player. Like that was like, okay, this is my life from now on. I'm gonna do everything I can to first of all listen to all the sax music available in the world and get a saxophone and start playing and practicing. And then, so I did that. And then eventually I did become a sax player and played a lot of jazz for a long time. And then eventually I moved to New York. I studied at conservatory in Denmark, studied jazz.
For jazz and sax?
Yeah.
Wow. Was there like an audition process to get into the school?
Oh yeah.
How was that?
That's insanely rigorous. Like just you only take 10 out of 500.
Wow.
Like a lot. So yeah.
But also maybe say why, because Copenhagen in general has a jazz thing, which people don't know.
That's true. Like, but it was kind of like in the 60s, there was a lot of Black American jazz players who came to Europe in general and Copenhagen specifically to live because of all the financial hardship and racism and all the stuff going on here. Like if you're, for instance, Ben Webster, he was like, he's like one of the best players of all time.
Sure.
But back then he was not, like he couldn't go in to eat in the same restaurant and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, right. Due to all the segregations and segregation
stuff. Yeah. And just like general racism and blah, blah. So when they got to Europe and Denmark specifically, there, no one knew Black people. They just thought they were awesome.
Great. Yeah.
Like
interesting.
They were great. They were just like, these are the most fantastic people we've ever seen and heard, and like so, and all the hot Danish chicks, they were like, woo, these guys rock.
Yeah.
So these guys were like, hey,
this isn't too bad.
What's not to like here?
Sure.
Like, and you know, like you could, like doing some different. I'm not obviously like not old enough to know about this. I wasn't around, so I don't know. I only heard about it. But you know, like any given night, you could go and see Stan Getz, Ben Webster, Dexter Gordon playing 3 different clubs like every night in Copenhagen in like, let's say 1965. So there was just like a lot of stuff, you know, like it was like very, very cool, and things were happening, and a lot of Danish musicians were, you know, like every soloist had to have a band. So they hired local musicians.
Danish ones, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so all these guys, like young guys who love jazz, and they are obviously like those saxophone players and other people also, like there was like a whole bunch of, it was like a whole kind of migration in some sense at different times. And of course they toured and came back and blah, blah, all sorts of, but so all these young Danish ones, they kind of got like an incredible education, you know, like playing every night with Ben Webster. That's just unbelievable, you know, like for months. And or Dexter or whoever, like so there was like a whole bunch. So when I came, you know, like into this jazz system many years later, it was like, you know, like it was still kind of stuck there. Like we had a lot of jazz. There was an insane amount of fantastic jazz players in the city, which there still is. And so I was like into that and like the whole thing. And then I moved to New York to study at the New School in Manhattan.
Okay, yeah.
And I did that, and then I was supposed to be there for 1 year and then go back and finish my education there, which I eventually did. But being in New York, when I came to New York, and I was like, I want to be, you know, like the best sax player in the world, kind of like that's the attitude I had, you know, like I was just like so much into it. And then kind of slowly or quickly, or rather how you define time, I realized that I realized that jazz, I felt, was kind of like a museum, you know, like that is like this old, you know, like that no one of all the people I met in New York, like fantastic, you know, like everybody who was like the top of the line of playing jazz.
Sure.
And they're all great, but no one can move the music further than had been done in the late 60s. And, you know, like it was kind of like everybody's great, but they all go back to playing like Coltrane, playing like all these different people that, you know, like invented the music. And basically what we're doing now is just copying them, because it's just taken so far out, you know, like Coltrane 69, or the Astral Planes, and Miles, of course. And well, Miles was like a little bit different because he, after 60s, he changed to electric, right? And then and then 70s electric, and then 80s electric, and then hip hop, and 90s. He changed whenever music was changing. He also changed.
He adapted to it,
and made something quite unique for that time period. And you know, he basically changed music 7 times, which is more than anyone else has ever done.
Yeah.
From the 30s and you know, like starting with swing and bebop, and eventually ending up playing, you know, like weird fusion stuff. And we had not so good hip hop, but that's all right.
Can't win them all.
Yeah, exactly, right. But at least he was trying, right? Whereas all these other people, they were like still playing jazz as if it was 1965, which is something that I personally didn't understand. You know, like I was like, okay, wait a minute, we're doing all this jazz, but why are we doing this? Because it's already been done, you know, like, and playing saxophone seems kind of insane, since you have to practice basically every hour you're awake to get to the level of Coltrane, because that's what he did. And so I realized that I had to do something else. Like I felt like this was not right. And so I kind of slowly realized that I needed to move. And then I got into electronic music. And then I kind of, I took it from there. And because the idea of what I wanted to do and still wants is to make new stuff, right? Create and invent and mixing genres and all that stuff, like to try to see if we can make something that has not been done before. So that's always been my kind of philosophy in terms of making music and being a musician. Also, like I grew up, like my dad was an inventor.
Oh, really?
So I like the invention aspect of making music.
That's
or making anything, basically.
What had he invented when you were
he invented actually, well, he had a company for many years that was like a kind of company that made things in metal and iron and like
well, he was an engineer.
Yeah, he was an engineer.
Oh, okay.
So he made like machines and stuff. The most crazy thing he did was a thing that can clean what's it called?
The
poisoned water. Like stuff that's like liquid that's poisoned or not, like dirty water or something.
Yeah.
And then
it's like a filter.
Yeah, kind of like a process of different stuff, whatever. So he made that, and then
wow.
and then used it a lot in the photographic industry to develop
film and stuff.
Reuse
like when you put
water, right?
Put the paper.
Oh, sure.
So all this stuff is very poisoned and dangerous. This water, it's like the wastewater, and so they cleaned that up, and then they could use it again, and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
And that was very cool until the day that suddenly digital photography just took over.
Oh yeah.
And there's a problem.
Yeah.
But he's fine. He's fine now. They're fine.
That's good.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what else? I was so well, this is a long fucking story. I don't know.
I love the story.
We have an hour.
Yeah,
right. Go for it.
Well, I moved back, and then I stopped playing saxophone, and I was still at conservatory, and they kind of didn't understand what I was doing because no one did electronic music at the time.
So you moved back to Denmark from
New York.
New York. Okay, cool.
And then I'm gonna make it a little bit faster here. So I eventually got my graduation, and then I started to make tracks and also moved to London for a while to study, like to kind of get into electronic music because that's where it was really happening at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back, and then I started a record label with two other guys, like my best friends, and we had like this company for 10 years that was making, like releasing records and making ads and kind of a music production house.
Sure.
And we did that, and then eventually we kind of split up, and eventually I moved back to New York after 10 years, and came back, and because I knew what I wanted was live in New York, but I just got caught up in this setup. So eventually when it stopped, I moved back, and then that's when I met.
Yeah, you met me.
I actually was I was traveling back and forth a lot, like for a number of years. I played with a different band as well, and we did a lot of shows in New York. And eventually we kind of all got stuck there and ended up staying in New York, and that's and eventually I met you there. We met there.
Oh, in New York. Okay.
Yeah, and fell in love, and kind of it became, and then we met, and immediately after we met, you're gonna move to LA.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So that was like, okay, I just got my apartment. I just got, I just got everything fixed. Now I'm gonna stay here. And then I meet this woman who was like, yeah, great, that's awesome, but I'm going now. Literally,
I'm going across the whole country.
Yeah. So and then I had to leave again.
Yeah, I mean.
To go to LA or
to go to, to go. I was
okay.
like, you know, like when you meet love, when you
sure.
find someone you love, that you know, like I'd never felt that way before. I never felt love the same way. So, you know, you really don't have a chance, a choice.
Aww. Yeah, sure.
No, I guess you have a chance. Not so, you know, like, so I just did that, just followed, see, okay, let's just see if it's fucked. Well, I'll just move back or keep the apartment.
Yeah, I mean, like you still kept your apartment in New York, so you still had like, you could just leave.
Yeah, I had a buffer, right?
You had a backup plan.
Yeah, you could just like leave. It's like, sorry.
But then yeah, we kind of ended up there, and we're still here. Like we're in LA now, right?
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. Okay. Well, Katherine, what was your story? You started in
South Africa, yeah. So
South
born
Africa.
and raised there, and a very different upbringing to Jens, of course, because I didn't grow up in a classical family. You know, it was a lot less lower grade than that, I'd say. No, I mean, but then at the same time, you know, a lot of our things like overlap in strange ways, even though I'm from like the southernmost tip of the world, and Jens is like super north.
Yeah.
You know, it's like these cultures that you think, but like in my upbringing, so I was born in Johannesburg, and I started ballet at 3. Wow. And then started all kinds of dancing. You do all contemporary jazz, modern jazz. It's like really, you know, jazz hands. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of like dancing and stuff. But why I was doing that is because, and I'm actually, it's like, I think because when I was a kid, I was, this is a weird thing to talk about, but it's like I was selectively mute. Now, I know you're like, how interesting. No,
that is interesting.
well, it's essentially, it's like you're selectively mute, which means that in certain environments as a child, so like I could talk within my family, but because of my intense shyness and stuff, I couldn't speak outside of the house. So I had to, and then on top of that, there was the stutter and all of this. So I spent, during the dancing, I was dancing and going to speech therapy. So I was dancing 7 days a week. Wow. And going to speech therapy twice a week and occupational therapy for like 10 years.
Oh my
That's
God.
how I grew up, guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it worked because I can't.
You'll hear it at times. No, I mean, like, no, but that's, you know what, like, this is like such a, you know, I'm starting to talk about the stutter and the impact it's had and all this stuff, because like a lot of people know me and like, well, I can't hear it. And the thing that goes on in a stutterer's mind or whatever, first of all, a lot of who's the guy that I always say that I love that he's a stutterer, the musician? Bill Withers.
Yeah.
Oh.
He was a stutterer.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like severe.
He only got help once he got famous. And somebody said to him, hey, you know, you can get that fixed. And I mean, his was very, 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 very bad. And now that Joe Biden is the president and he has a stutter, and it took him years to get over that, it's such a funny thing to watch a stutterer talk in public, because I understand what's going on inside. So a lot of these kind of, when people think, like he kind of sometimes will like smudge through a word, or kind of like, you're like, oh, he's a bit doddery. No,
right.
What he's doing, it's like word supplementation. So if you're speaking and you're like, okay, I use this as an example a lot to describe what it's like internally. So if I'm talking to Jens and I go, I'm in my head, I want to say, I'm going to the bedroom, right? That's what I'm going to say. But I know, I don't know how, but you can feel I'm not going to hit bed. It's just, I'm going to stumble. I can't get that word out, or it's not going to. So your mind is going, how do I supplant that word I can't say for the same meaning? So your brain is going, what's another word for bed? Sleeping plank. flat plank, duvet land. No, you're trying to just like,
whoa.
So that's what's going on in a stutterer. And like when you watched, like, and I'll stop this whole thing, but sorry, I got on track.
No, it's fascinating. This is really interesting. I didn't even know Joe Biden had a stutter.
Oh,
no,
I thought he was just trying to. No. So this is the thing. This is like, so when Joe Biden and Trump had the debate where Trump went completely nuts, right? And he just was like screaming at him and wouldn't let him speak. Well, turns out, and I was so angry as somebody that stutters, because the thing is that if you have another stream trying to come here, you like to be able to speak, breathe nicely, get your point across. If somebody starts to throw words into your word stream, you're going to have a problem. Oh. And I could see him just trying to be like, okay, I have to be smooth. I have to combat him. I have to look at this. And I was just like, I was in tears. I was like, you can't put somebody in a thing like that. And then I found out that Ted Cruz coached him to do the exact thing he was doing because he knew he had a speech thing.
Oh,
and I was like, wow. Next level.
Whoa, oh my goodness. I had no idea. I figured that he was just like old, like he's an older guy, right?
I mean, he
thought he was like trying to remember, like, he just kind of slowed down to get what he was trying to say out.
Yeah, he's just trying to not make a stutter. That's the thing. He's trying to not make a so so for him to do that, he kind of slows the speech. So yeah. So let's go back off my stuttering. So
that's really fascinating. I had no idea that he has that. That's really interesting.
No, he's come from Joe Biden is insane.
He could hardly speak.
Yeah.
He could hardly speak. Like, wow. I mean, like it was that kind of like super severe.
And he's actually helping a lot of stutters now. Like he's mentoring stutters and like, you can be president.
Like
right,
me.
Of course. Yeah, sure. Wow. Yeah. Now he's, speaking to the world, and you wouldn't have any idea. I had no idea that he had a stutter. That's crazy.
Yeah. So this whole thing with speech and all of this, and then like you've got, my trajectory to get to America and all of this stuff, and like an odd quirk with some with stutterers or whatever. It's you don't stutter when you sing. That's one thing. You just don't. You can just, and that's a thing that they'll do in speech stuff with you. So they'll kind of be like, if you can't say something, sing it. And then you'll be able to say it. It's this weird kind of.
Because you're holding out the words, or like, you're holding out the vowels longer or something?
Yeah, it's to do a lot with like, I've done all the research. They don't know like what the thing is, like what's the thing. It's anxiety based. Right. So like you get anxious as you're about to like let go the speech, but they don't exactly know why. Like singing, I think because it's slower and there's a construct, if that makes sense. So like there's 1, 2, and then you've got the words and it's all constructed. So you're not, like your brain is not the construct.
If you or any one of the listeners have not, they should definitely watch the film, The King's Speech.
Yeah.
Which is about the British king in the 30s who was like, he
had a severe stutter. Yeah.
And he had to.
I've heard of the film.
It's an unbelievable film. It's so good. And I'll stop this. So the British king stepped down because he wanted to marry this American lady who was divorced already. So he couldn't. So either marry her and step down or be the king. So he had to step down. So there was also other reasons, but he did that. So eventually his brother, who had never been on the trajectory to become king, right? He became suddenly king. And he was like a fucked up stutterer. Yeah, and suddenly
he could hardly speak and like.
And this happened right before the Second World War. So he had to like address the nation like in the most terrible time of insane sanity. And he was like,
he couldn't speak.
So he was coached by this teacher, like, and with using the singing method, and you see it in the film, and it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was the first film that I took you to on one of our first dates. And I think Jens got so scared. Well, I mean, because I kind of was like, this is an important film for me. And Jens was like, all right. I was like, because of my stutter. And he was like, okay. And then I just started bawling my eyes out. I was like, damn. Okay, like on a first date to be like this girl. Yeah.
It's you're gonna cry no matter if you stutter or not. You know,
yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
Wow.
But so yeah, so enough on, I'm trying to get off the stuttering, but yeah, so like this whole thing about like having that as an emphasis in your life. And then I kind of, and then I really got into drama and all this stuff because of the occupational stuff. And for shy, you know, like, and again, for some unknown quirky thing, you get that text in there. So if I learn that text, it might take a bit when I first get the text, but if I get the text, it's in there, it just comes out, right? Because you have a construct, and yeah, I don't know why, it's like an odd quirk. So there was power in that. I could construct my speech, felt great about it and all the stuff, and I was good at it. So yeah, and then so I grew up in Joburg, then we moved to a very small town in the countryside in the Cape, where they make all the wine, and went to a very small school, and basically was like, had hopes to come to America, which is very difficult. It is very hard as a South African. I mean, that's why you don't have a lot here. You have the majority, if they can go anywhere, it's the UK.
Is that why? Do you know the reasoning behind that? Is it
historically because of, like, you know, you might have, okay, we used to have a treaty that allowed, and this is because of the colonial past, right, that they'd like allow you a 2-year work visa, right? So, so that you could go and grab some pounds and come back to Africa, and kind of, yeah, this they thought was great, but then they stopped it. But a lot of South Africans will choose to go to Europe. Well, we'll choose the UK, because there's a high population of South Africans, and because they might have family there. I don't have European family. It's just, yeah, I'm South African. I don't know what that means, but yeah, and I didn't want to go that route. I don't know. It was kind of like not exotic to me. It wasn't something, yeah, I just had this thing. I just wanted to go to New York, but I was also into jazz and all of this kind of stuff at the same time. Sorry, I'm getting all kind of, it's kind of weird. You have to talk about it, so I can get all twisted. Yeah, so grow up there, blah, 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 leave school. And I say to my dad, well, someone tells me, it's kind of weird, like, for someone that wanted to like get to America, like I didn't know things, like had never heard of Tisch. I was like, what's Tisch? What's Tisch? I don't.
It's an acting school.
Yeah, no, but I had no idea what Tisch.
But I'm just...
Yeah, no. Well, Tisch in New York is an acting school, America. But yeah, well, it's an arts, blah, blah. And I didn't know Tisch, and I didn't know studios. I just kind of, yeah, and somebody said, hey, if you go to Stella, if you get into a studio, then there's a way for you to, if you're accepted at conservatory, then you can get to America, and then you've got to go through these visa loopholes, but it's the only way for you to get to America is you have to come here to study. So my dad, being the eccentric that he was like, I said, Dad, you know, I want to try out for this, and you know, and he always supported me, and my family always did, with all my weirdness. And he was like, okay, cool. And he wanted to do this whole trip with me, so we flew over to New York to audition for conservatory at Stella Adler, and yeah, I got accepted on the spot.
Wow.
It was nuts.
That must have been a huge moment for you.
It was really nuts. It was very nuts. And yeah, I mean, because my dad, because, you know, it was so strange. Like, we kind of pulled up, and it's like, I'd never been to New York. My dad was also like, this is terrifying for me, you know, because, you know, it's big and American and loud, and you don't really understand that you kind of, your accent feels kind of small and little, and it's always big, and we kind of walked up. Because my dad stayed, because he kind of kept a car. He rented a car because it was a big day. So he's like, I'm going to rent a car, and I'm going to get a driver. And my dad was very much like, you know, kind of trying to be all like, let's go. So, and then I went upstairs, and this is also just a side note. So the monologues you had to do two, and one that I did was a Salome, which is an Oscar Wilde play, but it's a whole thing that you do with a decapitated head. Okay, it's a monologue you do once she's ordered this guy's head to be cut off, who she's in love with. Okay, it's amazing. But so in order to do this, I had to travel with 2 styrofoam heads. Yeah. Okay, just think about going through JFK. They're like, why?
Like, what is this?
Why? And like, I'm there with my dad, and they're like, this is weird. So I like arrive with this styrofoam head, and it's like wrapped in like, and I'm like holding it, and they're like looking at me all weird. And then the 2 heads or whatever kind of just pull you into a room, and you're on the 8th floor, and you're looking out at New York, and you're like, damn. And yeah, and then then I did it, and then it was quiet, and then one left the room, and then one of them said, well, blah, 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 blah. And then when you start, and I was like, hang on, wait. And they were like, no. Well, yeah. And so, and I got in, and it was, it was nuts. But then, how's this? So I got in there, and you're supposed to wait 2 weeks until you hear if you get in. So it was like, and I felt so like, yeah, I'm a rock star. Wait. So then the next day, and I found out I was in. So I was like, okay. And as an add-on to this, because this was a school I was trying to get into, but then as an add-on, because I didn't know about Tisch, my dad was like, let's set up one for Tisch as well, which we did. So I did Tisch, and that was a completely not the same experience. Let me put it that way. Okay. I remember like there were 3 of them in the room. I had to do an extra one, and my third one was just an insane thing. I don't even know why. I tried to do this. Yeah, try to do this really dumb thing that they probably looked at me like, no, please don't do that. Thank you. And I just remember them being like, and I knew that this is not gonna go well. But then at the same time, they kind of sat back, and they were like, so do you have any, are you doing any other auditions while you're here? You know, like shame, you know, kind of like.
Sure.
And I was like, I actually got in yesterday at Stella. And they were like, oh, fine. Okay. And then I like left. And Stella is a studio that's part of Tisch, just so that you know. It's kind of weird. Yeah. So that whole thing, did the whole school stuff. I was in New York completely on my own. I'd never been, when I arrived back, I'd never been on a subway. I was dropped on the on the edge of Harlem and Columbia, because I got into this so weird. I'm this kind of this residency for Columbia that's for academics. Which I got in on my academics. So I was like the dumbest one there. Like I was sharing, like, you know, like you kind of get into this place, and I was sharing an apartment, which is with a residency, which, you know, Dan, who's a friend of mine, is now a Shakespeare scholar, and I'm like an actor. Whoa. You know, it's just like, yeah, it's like, so I was like, whoa, this is like nuts. And I was just like, I didn't understand. And I was like, whoa, and I didn't know anyone. And for the first time in my life, you know, I could walk outside on my own at nighttime. In South Africa, you can't do that. Really? You know, it's a safety concern. You don't like, you've got to know where to go. It's just like being in Brazil or another developing place. It's like, it's unsafe. And my granny's been attacked. My mom's been attacked. I know 5 people, you know, I know a lot of stuff like this. So you grow up in a different way.
That's really scary.
Right. But that was the thing. When I got to America, it was the nutsest thing. I was just like walking at 5 a.m., feeling completely safe. In fact, I don't even think I was as safe as I thought I was.
Probably
you know
not.
what I mean? Like I wasn't as safe. I was just like, but I felt safe. So yeah, so that was great. And then I did a graduating show where they opened the school to the public because it's blah blah. And Jens came with a friend that I met through a mutual friend there. And he phoned me, and I remember he said, I have a Danish friend. He just flew in. Can he come to the show? And I said, okay, yeah, sure. I don't care. Yeah. Sure. And then, and then I did the show, and you didn't understand a word because it was Shakespeare. So you were like, what?
It's hard. Like,
no, it's hard because it's not in
words
Danish.
You don't know, and it's like 3 hours long.
Yeah,
of course.
No one. Yeah, that's also the thing. You don't. Yeah. And then I was supposed to move to LA because I was signed to management. I didn't have papers yet to work. I mean, it was, and also a nuts experience for me. And so I said to Jens, I was like, nice to meet you, but I'm going to Los Angeles, which I didn't want to go to when I just, And
but it was for acting. You got the acting management. Okay.
Yeah. So acting rep, and then I was about to go, and then I was asked by the school, which has a professional arm, to do a run of another play. And then management was like, no, you should stay there and do that play. It's good for you. We don't know, like, you know, you're not going to have stuff to do here. So just go do that for 2 months and then come out. So that gave us time to have our relationship for longer.
Okay.
And then eventually I moved down there. And then, we were there and then my brother moved. My God, so weird. My brother moved with me as well. And we had a crazy time in that little flat. And then Jens was in and out because you were doing work. And then I was there for like 5 months. And then, and then I got a phone call from my brother, and he just said, Dad's had a stroke, and he dropped dead. Yeah. No, he didn't drop dead because he was lying on the couch, so can't really drop dead.
But still, my father-in-law had a stroke like right before COVID started, and he survived it. But I mean, it was super scary. I mean,
were you there?
Well, they live right down the road from us, so it's happening. And my mother-in-law calls me, like freaking out, and I'm like, she's like telling us what's happening, and I'm like, why are you not calling 911? So like, I'm calling 911 on my phone, and like. Yeah, it was really scary.
But how is he now?
He's doing well. He still has like, I mean, it's a whole thing. They did like an angiogram to check out where it was. And then like, he ended up having like a mini stroke during the angiogram. But right now he's okay. He's got a little speech thing, like a little bit. And you can, if you knew, you could see like his left side is droopy a little bit, but if you didn't know, you wouldn't really notice it. He'll like forget words, so to speak. But it was really scary for like a couple of weeks. Like he couldn't remember, he didn't know people's names and stuff or faces. Like it was scary, but it all came back, and which we're super thankful for. But it was scary. I'm so sorry about your father. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like it's an odd thing. It's like look, I always think that like the good thing about my dad like that is that when you have a shocking sudden death, you didn't know you were going to die. That's one thing. 2, you don't really have a lot of pain, and it's not a protracted thing and all this stuff. But I mean, it was one of I mean, that again, like I have these things in my life where I can kind of track where these are big kind of, and so I remember being in West Hollywood, and I got that call from my brother, and and I knew. Because the visa thing, now this is where everything would change. So I got out of school, and because I spent 2.5 years and paid so much money to go to this school, you get a year to find work, and you can work during that year. So I had management, right? So then you start to work towards your green card, and then blah, blah, blah. But if you leave during that year for anything, goodbye. You may not come back. Yeah.
Really?
Yes. 100%.
Wow.
I got that call, and two things were going on. So my dad was dead. Well, he wasn't quite dead yet, but yeah. Sure. And I knew that I was going to have to fly home. And I knew that when I flew home,
it was over.
Then my visa prospects were very hard. So went home, and that was crazy because Jens came back with me. First time had to meet my mom. Like, hi mom, this is, but yeah. I mean, he was great. And yeah, so then we kind of, and then once we moved there, that's when the band started. It was when we moved home. Well, not home when from we moved South home. Africa. Yeah, okay. like when we came home the first month, you were there for a month, and while he was there, Jens asked me, because you were making stuff on your own, and you said, "Hey, do you want to sing on this track?" And I was like, "No, that's very embarrassing. I think it's embarrassing if your girlfriend sings on your music. Isn't this embarrassing?" And he was like, "No, I think you should try it." And then I was like, "Okay." And then I kind of tried it, and he was like, "No, that's great for some song." And then the next thing I know, Jens had left me with a setup that I had, and I was like, "Oh, I'm recording now?" He's like, "Yeah." So while I'm away, I was like, "Hey." Like, okay. So there I am in my mom's house, and yeah, like it was kind of this really nuts time. So he had left, my dad had died, so it was like grief, and my mom, you know, and she's like doing her stuff. My brother's there, he's kind of in and out, he's doing his own vibe. I'm recording this stuff, and yeah, kind of not knowing my future because I couldn't get back into America like that. I was like, oh great, so I went all the way there, had all, and then I'm back here.
Yeah, finished school, everything, had a management, and then now you're back home, and
I'm like, this is great. This is fun. This is great. So so then the next best hope was like, look, okay, well, you know, and all my life was like outside of South Africa as well. It was kind of this weird thing where like I do this weird thing where like, yeah, you kind of, yeah, that's a side note. And Jens was like, well, why don't you come to Europe where I am now? Because I have to do some work here, and we'll just see and try and get you a visa. So I went and I got a visa, and then I got an American visa in order to allow me to travel kind of in and out for 10 years. It's called a B1.
Okay.
And yeah, and you have to go to the consulate. I don't know if Americans know this, but in South Africa, like at least in Cape Town, the consulate is so guarded. It's like you have to walk 4 miles from where you park your car to get to the consulate, which is in, gosh. No, it's so deep. And then you go in there, it's like a futurism film. Like, it's like, no, but the dystopia has gone on, right? It looks like that. And like you go in there, and you have to bring a stack of things, and you have to prove my mom all her bank statements, and you're trying to prove that I'm not trying to come to America to steal jobs. That's always a thing you have to prove. And you're like, yeah, I'm an artist. It's not like I'm going to steal jobs. But yeah. So
but anyway, it's like whose job? The fact that whole thing is so funny. It's just like this thing. Like it's always like jobs. Like, okay. Yeah.
And so I went into this place, and it's also a nuts thing in my life, right? Because I was nervous. I was like, if I don't get this visa, I cannot get back into America. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's a big deal because you've got to get all this. I arrived with like a thing like this, right? To prove my existence. I exist.
Yeah.
And so dumb. And yeah, I'll stop now. And I remember being there, and I arrived, and the person's at the desk, and he kind of looks at you, and he's like, okay. He kind of like reads my passport, and he's just like, oh, you went to Stella. That's a good school. Then he looks at me, and he goes, step away from the glass. I was like, what? And he was like, I was like, you okay. And I kind of step away from the glass.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'll step away from the glass. And he's like, just do the last thing you did at school. I was like, you mean a monologue? He's like, yeah, well, what was the last thing that you did? I was like, I did the Shakespeare play. He's like, yeah, do a bit of that. This is in the middle of a marble consulate. There are people. He's like, yeah, just go stand there and then do it. Serious. I'm like, people think I'm lying. I'm like, no, this happened. And then I was kind of like, okay, I can't really act this. I have to just be able to do these words very, very quickly, and then that will be impressive. So I just did some Shakespeare, and was like, and then he was like, great, stamped it. Didn't look at one document.
Oh my gosh.
I would just like to say that. Like, so it's kind of this like weird thing. So yeah, so then we went to Europe and America. Well, first we spent, how long did we spend in Europe? So you can.
Well, this was actually this visa was after this, but so you came to Europe and we were in Denmark, and then we were like, this was January.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, what the fuck we're gonna do? We don't, we can't go back to US. So I had a car that I had before there, so it just sat there. So we took the car, filled it up with instruments, and then we drove on a road trip to down Germany, and ended up in a Swiss chalet in the mountains.
As one does.
That owned by a friend of mine's very rich family, and they just had this house sitting there empty. Whoa. So we were allowed to stay there for like, I guess we were there for 2 months.
Yeah.
In this house in the Swiss Alps, like just unbelievable. But at the same time,
every
day we were like,
it was so tense. It was me trying to talk to my lawyers and trying to like extend my stay in Europe, because Europe, and then you have to do all the stuff, and then they were like, you have to leave. So then I had to come back, and then that's when I got the American one. That took a while.
Yeah, and
so
you had to kind of go around the house and try to get some like
reception. Yeah, I mean, it was a deep time, and like we made it, and it was great and glamorous. But like when I look back at it, I mean, I was like 4 months into my grief with my dad. My whole life had like that I was constructing had kind of evaporated. I had like no, and then I was doing this band, and I was like, what am I doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, but the thing that is that we made the first record. We made 3 albums now, right?
Yeah.
And the fourth is coming now. But the first one was made there in that Swiss house.
Just Gonna Die too?
Yeah.
That was made in the house. Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, we were kind of, it was just like we had nothing to do, so why don't we make some songs? And then, because I was already making my own band, like the band was my band.
Yeah, you were doing some
instrumental stuff, music, like trying to mix electronic stuff with symphony orchestra and stuff like that. And so that was what it was, which was also why the name of the band was OOFJ at the time, which was called, this is like Orchestra of Genoa, which is my nickname. So that was like, it was just like my band I was saying, and then suddenly it was like, why don't you sing where she's singing? But you actually never sang before, so it was also kind of like but I just liked how it worked really well, and also like that for whatever reason you had never written a song.
Oh yeah.
So turns out she's an amazing songwriter. No one knew.
Wow.
Like I would give her tracks and she would make melodies, like just record on the laptop, and then we'd take those and kind of move it back and forth and all that stuff. And it just ended up being like really working very well. And finally the album came out, and a lot of people really liked it a lot. And then it was like, wow, this is kind of nuts, like now let's try to really make it, let's try to make it now. So we made the second album, which was much more like, now we're going to try to
make something a little bit more accessible.
Accessible, but also, like we are a band now. Before it was just like, well, let's see. And now, so we did that, and that was, we made I think we made like maybe 100 tracks to get to 10.
Yeah.
Whoa, for Acute Fees?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. How is that? How'd you strip down 100 songs to 10? That must have been a process.
I get, you know, like some of it is just, you know, like maybe
and some of it is like you'll go back and you're like, wow, I'm the most embarrassing person that has ever existed.
Okay,
that's very embarrassing. That's very embarrassing.
Yeah, and then eventually you're, you know, like you're at 20 and then you're at 15 and, you know, like, and then some of them are pretty great, but, you know, like you can't. And then I think, you know, like stuff, then I'm sure you probably, you know, like everybody knows who are songwriters that, and then some things you use for something else, or you restructure it later, or you figure out like, why is it not exactly right or whatever, like you kind of maybe do new production, new arrangements or whatever.
And,
you're like,
and I think sometimes it'll be like, we've had experiences with this, like, so it'll be Jens will send me some kind of sketch of a track or whatever, and then I'll be like, you know, and at the time I'll hear that sketch at that time where I am, and then you'll be like, no, I don't like it, thank you, no, I don't want to work on this. And I can be like that. I'll be like, I'm not, do another one, no thanks. Or you respond to something and you think it's, you know, but then when Jens will be like, hey, I found this thing again, do you want to try it again? You've suddenly moved somewhere else. It's almost like magic, where you can kind of be like, oh, but now I'm responding to this. I don't understand a year ago where I couldn't respond to this. You know, that's like the weird thing about music in general. It's like unseen kind of like blind magic, you know. It's not like you can't.
But also, you know, like I always say that time is the best quality control, right? So we basically, as a songwriter, as someone who makes anything, basically, you kind of, in really to understand what you're making, you should have 100 years.
Yeah, that's true.
And check it out, like what happened, how is it this after 100 years?
Oh, that's
but
interesting.
You don't have concept. You don't have that time, right? You just don't.
But that's the thing you should talk. I mean, that's, you think like that. I mean, that's, I mean, I don't think like that, like, because I'm cheap. You think like that.
I'm interested in making stuff that's unique and new and everlasting and all that kind of stuff. So if you know, like, it's hard to make anything and just like, yeah, this is amazing, and then, you know, like, you just don't know until some time have passed how good it actually is.
Sure.
Like you need, you know, like maybe a week, a month, a year, you know, like how long do you have to realize, is this really fantastic as you thought of the first day you had the idea, or when you were jazzed about it or whatever, like, you know, like there's also stuff, I'm sure, you know, like tracks where you really like this, but then next day or next week it's like, oh, okay, I'm so embarrassing.
Like what was I thinking?
Exactly, right. So that kind of like, how do you realize and understand what it actually is you're making? You know, like, it's hard. You have to kind of hear them a number of times over a period of time, I think.
No, definitely. I totally agree with that too. And it's interesting to say what you said, where, you know, you look at a certain song or a melody like with different, you know, eyes or ears or whatever, like a year later, or 3 months later or 2 months later, and you can think of something in your brain like, oh, like this would be cool if I do this. And before you're like, oh, this is a throwaway scratch track or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
I once produced 2 albums with a Danish pop singer, like a very famous guy. He was he's older, he's like 60 something, and he was huge. Like, he was literally the biggest star in the 80s and partly 90s.
Wow.
And in the 2000s, I produced 2 records for him. Kind of, he was trying to kind of come back, which kind of partly happened. But he told me about, you know, like all the songs that were hit songs of his from the 80s. I knew them, I grew up with them. And then he would explain to me how they'd made them.
That's interesting.
That this song that is basically whatever, like just a bass and drums groove or something, like whatever, like could be anything. How he would explain, well, first it was this kind of style, and then we made it in this style or this style, like that. They were just like, they've been all over to end up with that. That was the most simple thing you could possibly imagine. Sure. And if you heard the song, you wouldn't have known that they started in a calypso version or whatever.
Calypso.
You know what I mean? and I just felt like that was so mind enlightening in terms of being a producer, and, you know, like things that you think, well, they just recorded this in 5 minutes or whatever.
But sometimes they do.
Sometimes
like,
they do.
Yeah,
that's like the
sometimes that
weird,
happens.
like that's, and this is, what was the fuck with the big teeth? What they called the band that we watched the documentary on? Staying Alive.
Bee Gees.
Yeah.
Oh, Bee Gees, yeah.
And like you watch kind of, like a lot of like these like great hits that they've made that are so perfect, right? Like Staying Alive, for example. Sure. The speed that they wrote that stuff at. It wasn't like, no, I sat here with my journals and I was like, and then I considered and then I was like, I don't know about the stanza. No, it was like, okay, we're all gonna sit in a room and we're gonna, oh, that's great. No, it works. And they were like, yeah, no, we wrote that hit song in an hour.
Yeah.
So it's
they
kind
always wrote the lyrics on the same day.
On the same day.
It's amazing.
That is interesting. I didn't know that. So
right?
they would come in with like nothing and just go, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe someone had something and then they just kind of took it and went with it and recorded a song and made a song. Found the 3-part harmony and just go. It's amazing.
Yeah, but it's that brother thing where they just kind of could sing together like kind of a weird.
Yeah.
But,
they have that like weird like not like non-verbal like feeling thing. It's like when they say like twins can like interact without even talking.
Totally.
Well, it's like in the documentary, Noel Gallagher says that they have that thing that you can't buy, that they're family.
Yeah.
And no one else can keep.
It's an instrument you can't make the same sound as, right?
Yeah, like you just can't. Like they have it, and no one else has that. And of course, that's very true for them as well.
Yeah.
Sure. Wow. Okay. Well, tell me about the next record you guys put out was Voyeur. Was that done in LA or was that recorded still when you guys were in Europe?
Yeah, that was the next album, right?
Yeah, and that was here.
That was here. So the first one was 13, second was 15.
I'm bad with dates.
And so that was Accused Feast.
Yeah.
Voyeur was
3.
19.
Yeah.
So that's a year ago. It's almost a year and a half closer now. October 19. Okay. So we did that. That kind of took quite a while to make as well. And there's a lot of
oh yeah, because this record Voyeur, I mean, it's like at that point, and I'm still obsessed in some way, but it's a lot of we're very into medieval church music. Does that sound cool?
No. Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like I mean, look, we listened to a lot of. I mean, you could describe this more about like what we were into, because we were very into this like choir polyphony.
We kind of like old time choir music, like
and
monks,
Bach, like with his
stuff like that. It's so beautiful.
Stuff. Yeah.
If you take all this kind of old stuff, like and organs and kind of dramatic, epic sounding stuff, and then you put it into our time with electronic drums and kind of, like.
Yeah, I think we were trying to make like some kind of like, like I like medieval art and kind of things like that. And I'm not a religious person at all. And it's kind of like it's religious music for people that aren't religious, if that makes sense. Like it's it's like, but it like deals with themes of like ecstasy and obsession, and like that's a lot about what I write about a lot. But except at the time that we did this, I was reading a lot about nuns in the 12th century, as one does.
As one,
it's just kind of like, and I'll drop. It's like, so I'm very obsessed with these nuns of the 12th century, and everyone's like, cool. I do not want to hear about it. I'm like, you do. It's just I mean, like, and I was very obsessed with it at the time, and like all these nuns, like at that time, and for like all the Middle Ages and all that stuff, like nuns were like locked away in these stone giant thingies. And they married themselves to Christ. So a lot of the writings they were writing about, all this religious and there was some religious stuff that, like music that they wrote, was all kind of sexual, like a sexual, like Christ was their boyfriend, right?
Interesting,
and all this like, and there's lots of scholarship on this, and things like that. And so I got very into this whole idea of like these kind of like repressed, kind of tight nuns, feeling the Holy Spirit, but the Holy Spirit is sexualized. And I had all of these kind of, you're like, great. But like,
it's fascinating though.
So that's why it's voyeur. It's kind of like this kind of, it's a lot of this religious, I don't know, I'm talking in circles.
Yes, well, I'm going to say something else. So, like also during this time, kind of leading up to that album, we had a lot of record label stuff going on, and we kind of almost got signed, like proper signed, like a few times. And
that's true.
We had a whole bunch of stuff, like that, and then they didn't want to sign us anyways, and then someone else would, and they didn't, and like all that kind of stuff. That's like, how do you deal with business in this industry, and how do you kind of like move ahead, and and when suddenly you're like, oh, we're gonna sign, and then they're not suddenly, and then you get very disappointed, of course, and you're like devastated, and then you kind of have to just grab yourself and just get up and move forward and do it again. And and as far as I guess now we're still like we are on a small label. Some friends of us in LA has a great label, and it's amazing. Problem is that they don't have tons of money
backing. Sure.
So but you just kind of you want to just like like keep doing it again, make more stuff and make more songs and try to be even better and unique. And like for us, it's a lot about being special and trying to have a different sound than everybody else. And
I don't think it's not like we're trying.
No,
it's just what comes out. Because that's like the backside of it. I think like
I think it's sorry.
No, I mean just like saying
for me, I'm sorry. Now I'm jazzed now.
It's like I'm sorry. Actually,
no, I think you're right. Like we are who we are, and it becomes like
we've tried to be a little bit.
Like it's also like you make a song and then you're like, okay, I have a bass, and then what happens if I turn off the bass? Or it's like when Doves Cry, Prince, where they muted the bass. There's no bass on the track.
Yeah, it's
and
just
it's amazing.
It's just guitar,
But there was a bass.
Oh, and I didn't realize that. And they just removed it after, like in the production. Wow. Yes. I didn't know that. I'll have to re-listen to that song now. I've never noticed that there was no bass.
Like, oh damn.
Exactly. Things like that which is why of course Prince is such a genius, that he would do these kind of things to like try what happens if you turn off the bass and stuff like that. So that's that's a try to make it different and make it like what happens if you do something that's turns take the drums out.
But and I'll have a counter to your point here. Just like like we've been told a lot, like even with our most approachable tracks, right? It's always like, you guys are quite unique, and we're literally trying to be as open as we can. Like we are being as open, like trying to be us, and like we've also tried to meet halfway, where you're supposed to kind of, and that's hard for us, like the things that is easy for us is to just express or make our own stuff. I think we're not good at the construction, the pop construction or whatever. Like it's hard for us to make.
I always find
we don't have the ears for something that's going to really hit.
Exactly. It's like I find it always interesting to like I've used to also do play avant-garde jazz, like free jazz and stuff like that, where it's like three people like it and they like it a lot
into the piano,
and they make weird sounds, and they and then I also did pop as a producer, but I don't really like each one of them, but I like when they come
together, in
the middle, if you can kind of be accessible and strange at the same time and have a lot of people like that. That's my idea of what's something that's very special but everybody loves it.
Sure.
Like Prince or
just like Prince,
other people. You know what I mean, like just like that thing where it's special but it's for whatever reason also normal people like it.
I love that. Yeah. Well, okay. So tell me, you guys just put a new song out in your mind. Where were you like when, you know, the pandemic hit and the world shut down? Were you guys working on a record and that, you know, caused a riff for everything? Or is this a record you wrote because everybody was stuck inside now? Like, tell me a little bit about where you guys were.
You know what? Like we had like after for a year, whatever, what, so it's like we started, when did we start to make music again? When we kind of,
I think some of it was kind of left. Some of the tracks were leftovers.
Yeah,
from different
they were
things
sketches. I think like we had one or two, and then this one though was new.
That's new.
Yeah, and
okay.
We were here, and as like that's also a strange thing, you know, like yeah.
It was actually the string arrangement.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The starts da, 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
That was taken from something else, from a different song we wrote 5 years ago.
Which song?
Oh, interesting.
I'm Always Right.
Oh damn, that song which I will not allow us to.
So we were.
Talk about.
That's like, you're like, what is this song? We wrote a song back then. I'm Always Right.
Yeah, I wrote that.
Yeah, you wrote that.
Because I'm always right.
So that's kind of funny, but the song never really worked. But and then at the time I made the strings for that, which is a complete different from.
Yeah, and then you've refound them, right?
And then I found it and kind of made a new track for that, and then I gave it to you, and then you wrote the song and your mind.
Oh,
and,
wow.
and yeah, and I mean, like that song was, you know, it was written in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, yeah, I think it was that like dead heat of kind of like June.
Mm-hmm.
And we went camping for the first time. And now this is strange because I'm a South African, so you think, oh well, she must be camping. No, you don't camp in South Africa for safety concerns. It's not like you can just camp, you know. It's like
you can't just go camp.
I mean like you can, but it's like you would have to, you know, you've got to be in a reserve, and it's got to be, you know, it's like not just like here where you're just like you could just camp and people just camp. I don't know. You know, and I'd never been, and we were like, let's go, and we kind of got we kind of packed everything, and we went for like 3 days, and it was such an experience that I'd never had. I was terrified on the first night because the South African sense of like,
yeah, is someone coming?
I'm not saying. Or I can just think that there's somebody who's been watching the car this whole time, and then all I can think of is I'm going to open my eyes and a guy's going to have a knife glinting in the moonlight. Like that's all I'm thinking of, not bears.
She loves true crime.
I love true.
I do too.
It's the best. But then when you go out into the real world, you're like, oh my God.
No, you're paranoid about everything. Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So I was dying, but then at the same time, it was so romantic, and this, you know, seeing this like American landscape that like, yeah, it's just, I mean, of course, everything's more big in America, but it's incredibly, yeah, it's beautiful. It's yeah, I mean, we
went to Sierra Nevada, which is like, parks,
up in Northern California,
it's just vast and huge and incredible and pristine. I was like, wow, Americans, like this is the best part. Like this is the best. And it was just like great. And we camped, and at the same time, it was like we were camping, and it was great. It's like it also feels like the dystopia is like jumping out of your TV, right? It's like Netflix has kind of walked out. It's kind of like, hi guys, the content has come back to kill you.
Sure.
Like, it's like, so it was all kind of that. And at the same time, Jens and I were on our own. We also are foreigners. So when you're here and you move to a foreign country and you're foreigners yourself, you kind of get very close and very tight because it's you against the world and in the dystopia pandemic. So it was this very, I don't know, this like June time of the pandemic for me was actually a good time. It was like kind of close, and no one was working that much, you know.
Sure,
no one was like
working at home or whatever.
Yeah, or because it was like the beginning, kind of the midway of the pandemic, Like people were just like, I'm just going to exercise and deal with my mental health.
Well,
that is all I'm doing.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
or sitting inside and watching Netflix.
Thank you. So it was kind of this like vacation from lifetime.
Right.
Even though it was frightening, but you know, for artists, you know, for the first time being in this art sphere where you had, and you still have now to a degree, but you had space. There was no competing. So you weren't like, oh, I should be doing this and getting this. It was just like everybody just kind of sat back and was like,
just competing to get toilet paper.
Thank you. You know what I mean?
But I wanted to say something that, because the reason why we did the camping us is we bought a new car.
Because I said we needed one.
Before that we had like this old shitty car, and we were just like, but we didn't really have enough money to get the car we wanted. But then in January we went to Sundance Festival because I scored a film.
Oh yeah, that too.
And
that was just before the lockdown.
Yeah, that was before, right? So that was in January, and it's Ai Weiwei, the Chinese artist. He made a film called Vivas that I scored, and so we had to go there to the premiere. And the year before, I worked on another film and ended up in an airport in Orange County for 10 hours because the plane's fucked. So we decided to drive.
Yeah.
But we couldn't. So we rented a car, and the car we ended up having was this awesome giant Jeep. So we drove from LA to Utah in a massive Jeep, and
I just said to you, I don't care what it costs. We're getting a new car, and we're getting a big ass one.
We want this car. We want to see America.
I'm in America now.
We're getting a Hummer.
Yeah, exactly. I want a big fucking Hummer.
So we got there and did the whole thing, drove back, and it was just amazing. Got back in our own shitty car, and from that was like, okay, fuck this shit, we need a new car. And eventually we got the car, and once we got the car, our car, we took the camping trip in the summer.
Very cool.
And also it was just amazing. We'd never really gone around a lot in America. We should, like, there's just so many places that you want to go.
I think that's, and I don't know if you find this thing about being in LA, it's like you kind of feel bad to go on vacation. I mean, you don't kind of go, let's go for a month to experience some other part of America. You kind of feel like, well, I'm in LA.
You're in the best place.
Like you're kind of in the place where you need to be, where the business, you kind of feel guilty to take.
Yeah. And you're in like a destination everybody wants to be at, right? I mean, you're not going to be like, I feel like going to the Midwest, like vacation for, a month. And they're like, why the hell are you here? Like, why are you not in LA?
Exactly.
But you also feel like you have to work all the time being there, right?
I think that's like the thing. Like the work ethic is also like you're supposed to, if you are a very good person, be working all the time.
There's just so much stuff, right? Like also because I also, like we also make movies, like scores, movies.
No, we don't make.
We don't make them. Well, I mean, we do, right? And we're making one that you're in.
You mean scoring?
Scoring and
cool,
also acting and we're scoring. We're scoring one film now, which is like scored by O Future. As the director wanted us, like
both of you,
fan of the band, so he wants the band sound, which is amazing because every other film I've scored has not been that. And another film has come up now that also wants the band to score the sound of this band. And so that's kind of really exciting because it's cool to be able to work, like that within that your own sound is what's gonna happen, be in the film.
Sure.
But being, like in the Hollywood system and just trying to make it here, it's very, very, very difficult, right? So you have to, you always feel a little bit guilty, and you always feel like you're not working enough.
Yeah, like I didn't send enough emails that will go unresponded to. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where it's like, you kind of, I think there's a lot of, I think I have a lot of, and I think it's a thing about being an artist or art adjacent person or whatever, like you you kind of always have this thing here, and the whole town is built in that way, where everyone is kind of running around trying to slipstream the dream, kind of trying to, yeah, like make their way. And it's like, and so if you know that, then you're like, well, if I'm not sending an email like every day, and or 10 or 12 or something, like, you know, then you're not doing your work. And I think, yeah,
doing something else, whatever, like you can
just
do,
like
you
to
know,
make
like whatever you do. Also, yeah, making. I think for us, it's like all this extra, you know, like the business is like this thing that you have to do, but as soon as you sit down and actually make your work, you know, like your art, we also, for she makes physical art, like artworks.
Oh, cool.
But you know, like also sitting down, like making, I can just like time, you know, like time disappears when you start making a track or anything like that, you know.
I think when what you're saying on that is like, what you're saying is that, like, I've heard a lot of creatives or whatever, that, or you hear something about like, oh, and I have a block and I can't work, or it's hard for me to work, or I don't want to work, and for both Jens and I, it's not a thing where it's touch wood, but it's not a thing where I'm ever like, I'm not like, if I decide to sit down and do something, so if I'm going to paint, I'm going to draw, I'm going to sing something, or whatever it is, it's not like I have to be like, I'm inspired now, let me go. It's more just like, okay, I'm going to do it now. And then you begin. So working is, and I think that's plus and minuses for us, but like Jens and I actually, our safe space is work, is to do the making. That's not the contentious side for us. Like, I find I could make all day and sit in a dark room and just make.
Sure, yeah.
But
it's the business end of it. That's the the work.
And I mean, sure, like everyone says that, but it's like, yeah, the creative side is not the thing that's hard. It's not the thing that keeps me up at night. Like, fuck, that thing I did yesterday, so bad.
Sure.
Like, you know, it's all this other stuff around it that I think is like,
no, it's just but that's just how it is, you know. Like, if you work in a company or whatever, other places, you could, different industries or whatever you are, there will be a ton of shit that you don't want to do. And it's same thing for being an artist.
I know.
But here you just have to, you know, as an artist, you are always on your own. You always have to pick yourself up by the bootstraps.
Yeah, there's,
you know, like
there's no one saying, hey, you need to get up and start to work.
You have to be able to schedule your day and make it like a whole life, you know, like, well, how are you going to do this? What are you going to do? You know, like, when are you going to do this? You have to do that as well. But all this kind of stuff. Like, I think a lot of people don't understand what the reality of life as being someone like us is, how kind of, there's an insane amount of freedom, which is amazing. Which is
and that's
also
what we like about
what we like, and what we've been pursuing, and like, you know, like, live a life of freedom. Also coming to America and living here, the land of the free, right? Which is not really that much, maybe too much, but
I don't know.
For us it has been in some way.
Right? For the insurrection.
But at the same time, the freedom also gives you a lot of you know, like, time to waste. And so you have to understand how to maneuver a day and a life, you know, like having, you know, making, and how to make good stuff for you, you know, like, how do you put yourself in a position where you can make the best stuff possible for you. And all these things, I think, are very kind of like instrumental to what you're going to be able to achieve. To understand that within your own life, for whoever.
Sure.
Like, it's taken me quite a while to understand what it is I actually wanted to do with my life. You know, like, in the beginning, as I said, I had a record label, and we did all sorts of stuff, and it was really fun and very successful. But looking back, I should just have possibly gone to be a solo artist immediately. But I didn't know it at the time, and I didn't, you know, like, and it was also an education to get to where I am now. You know, like if I hadn't done that, the music wouldn't have sounded like this probably, and all sorts of things.
Sure.
It's just an interesting idea of looking at your life and see, okay, what do I do to make this the best for me, and to eventually make the best of and become as successful as I can be.
Sure. Well, to everything you just said, I mean, my last question for you guys is always if you have any advice for aspiring artists, and that you kind of summed it up in a very, you know, your way, you know what I mean? Like with, you know, you have to make an agenda, and you have to, because there's no boss telling you have to be here at 8:30 and then you get lunch at noon and then you go home at 5 or whatever it is. It's like, if you want to succeed, you have to do the work. And I think people also that aren't creatives, or they just assume like, oh, well, you can, you know, you wrote that song in probably like an hour. And that, like, what makes, you know, that's not work. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, they don't understand the amount of time and the amount of years and hours that you've put into what you do to get to where you are.
And I'd also say, like, a thing that is also like that thing about like, yeah, like you have to work on it yourself, and it's your career and things like that. I mean, and for someone like me, that's, you know, it's also something that I've had to learn, because I'm a very shy person, as we've discussed, hence why I couldn't speak and all of this. And a lot of like arts, I don't know, business stuff is social. Mm-hmm. It's all like, how do you make the connection, and then you hustle in, and then you're doing the thing, and then you talk in the way, and then you know how to send the you're doing the thing. And for someone like me who's an introvert, mm-hmm. I make the thing. I don't want to talk about the thing specifically, or like I don't know how to hustle the thing. And that's just something that you kind of have to learn, that like it's okay to kind of, and I had to learn that because I come from a culture where you're not supposed to boast, and you're not supposed to go, I'm great, and you're not so, you know, to send an email and be like, hey, check out my blah, it's like, oh, you could never send that.
Right.
That's the most cringy kind of like,
that's exactly cringe. How I feel. I have to have my wife is like the manager, so to speak. She does all the boasting and all that, because I like, if you had to put me in like a sales position, forget it. I'd be like fired in a day.
Totally. But that's what the position that I think, so like your question of, I think, you know, there's a plus and a minus right now to being in culture where we are right now. And the good part of it is that there is no shame to the personal hustle thing. Like no one's ashamed of that. It's okay. It's okay to, you know, so I think that that's something I'm saying to myself that I should have learned quicker, that you don't have to be embarrassed that you're trying to put yourself forward. That's fine. And then 2, I'd also say, you know, like on some days, it's okay to give yourself a bit of a break. I think that's also an important thing to say, because I think also that's the message you get, right? Like you'll open your computer and you'll get some kind of like, seize the day, go for gold, you're doing it, like, and you're like, oh, fuck, I'm not. I haven't even woken up, and you're just tired, and you're like, I can't, and I'm worried, and I'm a little bit sad, and I'm thinking about time, and, you know, all kinds of stuff and some days, if you can, just give yourself a break, and just be like, okay, if I can't, you know, send 12 emails, I feel bad about this or whatever, like, yeah, like you're human and you are doing your best, and it's okay to just take a day to like not be on the, it's your dream, it's your career, it's the, you know, because I think that is a toxic thing as well. So I wanted to balance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But also like, just, I think, you know, like perseverance is a very, very underrated quality. And
getting up again and again and again.
That's really what I think.
Because you'll get knocks all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that people don't talk about, the ability to kind of just be like, dust yourself off and stand up again.
It's very rare really, you see any band that is successful that's signed on the first record, or, you know, like, you have immediate success. Almost everybody have struggled.
I think
forever.
It's different. I think back in the day, what, like Bowie made 5 before
he made like
I mean, I think he made 5 before he had a hit. before he was
5
like
records.
signed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's insane.
Crazy. Yeah.
Well, he'd been working for 11 years before he had a hit song.
Yeah. So, but it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that anymore.
It's not the same type of records that are being number one.
Yeah.
So
right.
I can go into it.
Bring it backwards.